As we all know, there are various forms of government in this world, but the major can be categorized into four types, which are: first, monarchy, consists of absolute monarchy and constitutional monarchy. Secondly, parliamentary and presidential. Thirdly, unitary and federal. And lastly, democracy and totalitarian, which also known as dictatorship. For everyone's information, system of Malaysian government as practiced in Malaysia are both democracy and parliamentary. In this video, we will go through the 5 characteristics of Malaysia as a parliamentary democracy country.
General elections in order to choose the government is the first characteristic. Abraham Lincoln mentioned that the government of the people, by the people, for the people. The phrase people means the majority people and not an individual person. Hence, it means the government was chosen by the majority of people. Democracy is a system of government in which the decision of what's to be done is determined by the majority of citizens. As a democratic country, the government of Malaysia will be elected by the people through general election that held every 5 years. Based on Article 119 of the Federal Constitution, every citizen who attains the age of 21 years old and also reside in Malaysia and register as the elector is entitled to vote in that constituency in any election to the House of Representatives.
The second characteristic is parliamentary system in Malaysia was adopted from the Westminster system. The first feature in Westminster system is the separation of powers. In Malaysia, there are 3 main bodies of the government, which are the legislative, the executive and judiciary. Malaysia uses parliamentary system as the main legislature authority in Malaysia. Parliament is the most important system in a country which practices the principle of democracy. In Malaysia, the parliament consists of 2 houses based on Article 45 of the Federal Constitution. The upper house, Dewan Negara or House of Senate, has 70 members, of whom 44 are appointed by the YDPA and 26 are elected by the state legislature. The lower house, which is Dewan Rakyat or House of Representatives, has 222 members who are directly elected by the people.
The third characteristic is maintaining confidence and popular mandate. Based on Article 43 Clause 4, the article permits the House of Representatives Dewan Rakyat to dismiss the Prime Minister and his government by a vote of no confidence. This statement means that the current government is no longer deemed fit to hold their current position because they are inadequate in some aspects and fail to carry out the obligations. We can see this in recent years in the case of our current Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin and our previous Prime Minister Datuk Tun Dr. Mahathir. Next is popular mandate. The Prime Minister is an ordinary MP elected to represent a parliamentary constituency. He is appointed to the nation's top political post by the YDPA under Article 43 Clause 2 on the ground that he and his party or coalition enjoys the confidence of the Dewan Rakyat. We can see examples such as Barisan Nasional Datuk Najib Razak, Pakatan Nasional Datuk Tun Dr. Mahathir and Perikatan Nasional Muhyiddin Yassin.
Dissolution of Parliament is also one of the characteristics that have been adopted from the Westminster system. Article 55 in Federal Constitution stipulates that Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the only person that can summon for Parliament to be in his session. YDPA also has absolute power to prorogue or dissolve the Parliament. However, Article 55 Clause 2 permits the Prime Minister upon advice the YDPA to dissolve Parliament prematurely. Therefore, YDPA is vested by the Constitution to summon for the Parliament to meet within 6 months between the last proceeding in the last session and the date appointed for its first proceeding in the next session. Under Article 40, Clause 2b, the YDPA is not bound by this advice, though conventionally he does not disregard it.
Fundamental rights is the fifth characteristic. Apart from electing the government, democracy in Malaysia is also seen through recognition of fundamental rights under Article 5 until Article 13 in the Federal Constitution. If democracy just means majority rules, well, that means that whatever the majority decides can and should be done. If the majority wants to rape someone, then the action should be allowed. But human rights oppose this. It draws a line in the sand. It suggests that something are banned to do. It says that some rights are precious and so fundamental that they should be protected even if the majority decides to infringe them. That is why Federal Constitution guarantees that such rights which so fundamental to be protected, such as in Malaysia, these rights are protected by the Parliament. For instance, Article 10 in Federal Constitution stated that every citizen shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression. Nevertheless, there are few restrictions imposed by the federal law in the interest of the security of the Federation.
Next, we will be explaining about the main responsibilities of Election Commission. The Election Commission in Malaysia is known as Suruhanjaya Pilihan Raya Malaysia and was formed on 4 September 1957. Under Article 114 of the Constitution of Malaysia, which empowers it to conduct election for the House of Representatives and state legislative bodies. Election Commission only consisted of a chairman and 2 members during its establishment. In order to fulfill the Commission's functions and carry out its decision, a secretariat was set up to the Commission. The first Secretary of Election Commission of Malaysia is Mr. H. Cassidy. Another 2 members was added after the formation of Malaysia in 1963 and the inclusion of Sabah and Sarawak in order to represent the 2 states.
First responsibilities of Election Commission is to review and reconstituency of the parliamentary election. As we all well informed that each state in Malaysia has its own unique advantage and distinct from each other in the aspect of both topographical and population distribution. Since the 8 interim years have already passed, Election Commission conduct the review of boundaries part federal election and the state of Malaya at this time, in accordance with the provision of Clause 2 of Article 113 of the Constitution, and each state not less than 8 years after the date of completion of the study and previous redistricting.
The second responsibilities of Election Commission is to start the voter registration and review the list of electors. They facilitate the voting process to secure the smoothness of the process. Registration processes and voting procedures have been simplified and voting hours also have been extended so that every citizen will have the opportunity to vote as conveniently and efficiently as possible. In order to a member of the House of Representatives, one must be nominated and win the parliamentary by-election. All the 222 members of Parliament in the House of Representatives was appointed by the number of votes that they have won in their own area. The condition is also applied to a person who wants to become a member of the state assembly for any state. That person must be nominated and win the state assembly election. This procedure must be followed and done to ensure that election can take place in orderly and fair manners.
The Election Commission is also liable to conduct the general election for the House of Representatives and the State Legislative Assembly. Besides, they have to run a by-election in the event of a vacancy. Since the independent year, which is 1957, Malaysia has maintained a multi-party political system in which political parties who have acquired a majority of seats in the House of Representatives or the State Legislative Assembly can form the federal or state government. The general election can be stated as one of the most important events every 5 years because the country will face a change in the government. It is either the people will govern by another political party that win the election, or the current government manage to maintain their position as the one who govern the country. The system used in Malaysia is based on first past the post system. This means that the candidates who get the majority will be declared as the winner in the respective constituencies.
In a nutshell, we can say that the system of government in Malaysia is adequate. The citizens have rights to vote in order to choose their governments. This is based on democracy parliamentary.